Agree.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be with you in this digital space once again. And as usual, Judy Zarubik is making the tech work smoothly and well, for which I am so grateful. I'm grateful because Judy lives out the golden rule. However, the wording of the rule might change depending on the one who's remembering. On the other hand, some creatures understand humans very well. Even among humans, though, misunderstandings can lead to the silliest of puns. However, there are some neighbors who act on their understanding of the consequences of their choices in life. For example, this picture shows a regretful neighbor's response to their frisky tomcat's activity. Other neighbors, however, take a more lighthearted approach to neighborly, prompting proper neighborly behavior in regard to their cat. Then there are those who like having the same fun with police officers. Other neighbors are gentle in their communication of their dismay. Not all people are neighbors. For example, the person who invented the Ferris wheel never met the person who invented the merry-go-round. It seems they traveled in different circles. Now, coming back to cat behavior, here is the real reason the world supply chain is interrupted. As we have discovered during this pandemic, times change how we do things. First, tablets were replaced by scrolls. Then scrolls were replaced by books. Now, however, we scroll through books on tablets. In our changing times, here is a poem written in the style of Elizabeth Barrett Browning that I would like to share. Earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God, but only they who see take off their shoes, dip their toes in the ice-cold stream, sketch what some would call a weed as a gift for a homebound friend, explain to a child why the leaves change color in autumn, pray and love for those different than us. The rest sit around and take selfies. The words of that poem inspire me to invite us to explore why we have the Transgender Day of Remembrance this Saturday on November 20th. Consider these harrowing statistics published by the American Academy of Pediatrics in 2018. More than half of trans male teens reported attempting suicide in their lifetime, while 30% of trans female teens said they attempted suicide. Among non-binary youth, over 40% said they had attempted suicide at some point in their lives. Many trans young people experience family rejection, bullying, and harassment, or feel unsafe for simply being who they are, all of which can be added risk factors for suicide. Statistics, however, feel as dry as the Sahara Desert. Instead, I want to share this video with you about one young soul struggling with their identity. There is also the struggle of her parents as they grow in understanding and as they resolutely champion her knowledge of herself.
Mais je pense que vraiment, la chose qui m'a le plus marquée, Sacha avait 4 ans.
Et me disait encore, maman, quand je serai grand, je serai une fille, etc. Et puis un jour, on m'a demandé une robe. Alors on est allé chercher une robe. J'étais gênée. Dans le magasin, j'étais gênée. Je suis pas une fierté, hein. J'étais gênée, j'avais peur du regard des autres, clairement. Et puis Sacha a essayé sa robe. Petite robe avec une mini. Et je l'ai vu se regarder dans le miroir, dans sa robe, et il y avait tellement de bonheur qu'après le regard des autres, j'en ai plus rien eu à faire, finalement.
Non, au niveau... Par rapport à Sacha, la question se pose même pas, quoi. C'est mon enfant, point.
1, 2, 3, soleil.
J'ai pas été le père en disant non, tu seras un garçon, quoi qu'il arrive. Moi, ce que je veux, c'est le bien-être de Sacha.
J'ai pas du tout le sentiment que Sacha vit la vie qu'elle devrait vivre, non. Si déjà, à l'école, on n'accepte pas, en tant qu'adulte, Sacha telle qu'elle est, les enfants vont forcément suivre le chemin des enseignants, qui sont l'image à suivre. Hein, on leur dit faites ce que je dis, c'est ce qu'ils font. Et puis beaucoup de parents aussi. Non, Sacha ne veut pas vivre. Sacha n'a pas la vie qu'elle mérite. Sacha n'a pas son enfance. On la prive.
Le terme qui est utilisé, c'est la dysphorie de genre.
Oui.
Tu n'es pas la seule pour qui c'est comme ça. On en voit d'autres, des enfants dans cette situation.
Je voudrais savoir si, par exemple, quelque chose de très, très pratique, très concret, est-ce que pour l'école, là, est-ce que vous pourriez me faire un papier qui leur prouve que ni Sacha ni moi sommes folles et qu'on nous laisse un peu en paix, parce que c'est épuisant de devoir aller à l'école et se battre tout le temps.
Bien sûr.
Merci.
Si tu veux, je fais le certificat, comme ça tu peux réfléchir à si tu as d'autres questions pendant ce temps-là. Non. Les larmes aux yeux, c'est quand tu penses à l'école. Et les 2-3 copines auxquelles tu tiens beaucoup, elle t'appelle Sacha au féminin. Comment elles font avec toi?
Est-ce qu'elle te... Ma puce.
Est-ce qu'elles te disent elle quand elles te parlent? Non. Est-ce que tu aimerais qu'elles le fassent?
J'ai un certificat médical donc qui dit qu'il serait préférable, que ce soit en famille, au milieu extrascolaire ou scolaire, de considérer Sacha comme une fille. Voilà, donc voilà, j'ai le certificat qui, comme vous m'aviez demandé, une preuve finalement, je l'ai. Si c'est encore comme la dernière fois, là, on se lève, on part et puis on fait ce qu'on a à faire à côté, quoi. Hein?
Ce qui est hors de question que là, tu me racontes la messe encore, le directeur. Là.
Ouais, enfin, essaye de pas être trop agressif quand même.
Je veux pas être agressif, mais il faut bien lui faire comprendre qu'il arrête de nous raconter la messe.
Mais...
C'est soit il accepte, soit il accepte pas. Voilà, c'est tout. Il n'y a pas besoin de tergiverser pendant 15 ans.
Est-ce que tu sais où on était, Sacha?
Quand?
Là, ce matin, avec papa.
À l'école.
Voilà, on était à l'école. Donc, maintenant, tu es une petite fille pour l'école, maintenant. Tu vas pouvoir t'habiller comme tu veux.
Donc l'école ne voit aucun souci à ce que tu puisses venir habiller comme tu l'entends.
Papa.
C'est quoi?
Papa. Ça sent.
Je suis persuadée qu'on a tous quelque chose, un rôle à jouer dans la vie, à un âge ou à un autre, à un moment ou à un autre.
I think that the obvious depth of emotion on that young girl's face certainly declares how important it is to mark the Transgender Day of Remembrance. With all good intentions, we don't realize how powerfully we hurt others who who are growing in their understanding of who they are. Sadly, communities of faith are often the worst places for such well-meaning toxicity. Using this background of the transgender flag, consider this illustration by a cartoonist self-titled as the Naked Pastor in proclaiming the need for greater understanding of trans identity. This is the usual experience of trans people when seeking to belong in our communities of faith. However, the Mother Bear is actually God in Jesus, trying to teach us to love and to welcome instead of hating and isolating. Questions which come from a place of ignorance can be powerfully hurtful. For example, here are some questions. While this cartoon takes a humorously droll approach to questions asked by others, here are some questions you shouldn't ask of trans people. Note that every trans person is different, has a different opinion on questions they like or don't like to answer. Some are open to answer any question, others aren't, and you should respect that. This applies to all people. Have you thought this through? When someone decides to come out to you, they probably have thought more about it than you do, especially if you aren't close to them. It's an inappropriate and annoying question. When did you decide to become a boy, girl? Please, please don't use words like decide or choose. It isn't a decision. Trans people were born like this. If this information is very relevant for you, which isn't the case 99% of the time, either ask, when did you realize you were trans? Or when did you come out? What if you don't want to look like a man or a woman in 20 years? First of all, the detransition rates are very low. Second, why do you care? I kind of understand when a parent asks this question, but they still shouldn't. Believe me, most trans people have asked themselves this question over and over again before coming out. Can I see a picture of you when you were a girl or a boy? The short and only answer is no. You might be interested in how someone looked pre-transition, but please don't ask this. Aside from the wording of this question, many trans people are dysphoric about their childhood pictures and don't want strangers to see them. Those pictures are not who they know themselves to be. How do you have sex? Now, believe it or not, there are actually people asking trans people and even minors this question. This is beyond inappropriate, at least as much as it is to ask you this question. If you are generally interested for whatever reason, Google it. Rule of thumb, be respectful. Consider whether the question is appropriate and why would you like to know that if asked of you? In fact, the perspective of trans people is like this. I am not trapped in my body. I am trapped in other people's perception of my body. Gender dysphoria feels like this. Gender is a lot like a pair of shoes. If you have on a good, comfortable, well-fitting pair, you don't notice it or think about it. But if your shoes are too small and tight, or there's a rock in them, it's all you can think about. Every step is annoying and miserable, and you don't want to do anything else until you fix the damned rock. Then there are those who try to put the rock back in your shoe. That is called dead naming, and here is why it is so harmful. Referring to someone, especially a trans or non-binary person who has changed name by a previous name with which they no longer identify. It may also be referred to as using their birth name or given name. It sends a message to trans and non-binary people that their existence is not valid and that their identity is not respected. If done in front of people who don't know that person is trans, dead naming them can effectively out them, which may be something the person did not want, putting them in danger. It can trigger a traumatic and or unwanted experiences linked to the use of that name. And it doesn't represent who they have worked hard to be. This has been the history of society's treatment of transgender people. We divide one another, hoping to place ourselves on the right side of the virtuous side, the holy side. However, in Jesus, we have been shown a different path described well in this prayer. God of the histories we tell, God of the histories we don't. On either side of a border, you are there. May we, in living out our faith, never pretend that there is a way to make ourselves purer or more righteous or holier by separating ourselves from those that you will never stop loving. Watch this short video about such a firsthand experience of the pain of being separated, isolated, despised, and dead named.
Someone wrote an article saying Laverne Cox is not really a woman earlier this year, and but here I am, and I know who I am, and I think it's so important that the misconceptions that trans people aren't really who we say we are, that sort of point of view influences public policy in negative ways, influences the way people think about us and treat us.
How society thinks about transgendered persons certainly has profound negative effects on trans people, which is why it is important to have the Transgender Day of Remembrance this Saturday. It is intended to remember those who have died by suicide or by murder, and to weave into our living a healthier, more loving manner of celebrating each person. The Bible never says that taking care of the poor, the hungry, the homeless, and the oppressed is a mandate for individuals only. The mandate is universal, meaning it applies to all human activity, including business, government, and particularly in our case, communities of faith. So let us learn how to use they, them pronouns out of respect for our transgender siblings. They is a pronoun, just like she, her, hers, and he, him, his. They, them, theirs can be used for someone like she and he. For example, they walked to the park. Remember, the person you are referring to when using they, them, their is singular. Grammar rules still apply. You would say they are instead of they is. even though you're talking about a singular person. Used in a paragraph, for example, Kai is my friend. They are really kind. They love Star Wars. I really like them since they have so much in common. By the way, they give me their Star Wars poster as a gift. I can't wait for you to meet them. I know it seems hard at times. However, everything is hard at first. Don't give up. Practice makes perfect. Keep trying. You'll get the hang of it. It's better to try and make mistakes instead of not doing it at all. People, especially trans people, will note your effort. Some have protested that they, them is plural, and it goes against grammar rules. As someone who prides myself on using proper grammar, let me share this perspective from a grammar point of view. We use they, them when gender of someone is unknown all the time. For example, someone left their wallet here. I hope they pick it up. Also, English recognizes they, them can be used singularly. Many dictionaries like Oxford English Dictionary, Merriam-Webster's Dictionary, and dictionary.com recognize they, them can be singular. The word they has been used singularly since the 16th century, and maybe even earlier. Yet people have protested. I feel weird, uncomfortable doing it. It might feel weird at first since you may not feel used to it. But again, practice makes perfect, and you'll feel more confident once you're familiar with it. Also, someone's pronouns doesn't interfere with your way of life. Just use the pronouns the person goes by. You can learn. Get over yourself. Being a good ally means always center the impacted, listen and learn, leverage your privilege, and yield the floor to those who live it. In addition, consider this excerpt from one of Franciscan priest Richard Rohr's blogs. Enlightenment is to see and touch the big mystery, the big pattern, the big real. Jesus called it the reign of God. Many of us perceive it as foundational love. Only when we are eager to love can we perceive love and goodness in the world around us. There is no secret moral command for knowing or pleasing God, or what some call salvation, other than becoming a loving person in mind, heart, body, and soul. Jesus did not say, "Thou shalt be right." Jesus said, "This is my commandment, love one another." How then do we live out that love with our transgender siblings? We become a good ally by using each transgender person's stated name and pronouns. If we commit to that gracious and loving practice, recent studies show that trans people will experience 71% fewer symptoms of severe depression, a 34% decrease in reported thoughts of suicide, and a 65% decrease in suicidal attempts. It seems to me well worth the effort to love in this gracious manner. As we love one another, let us consider this video song as our prayer, not just for ourselves, but for our transgender siblings.
As colors in the sky, we move and blend in love. A touch of this, a mix, a match, as gifts from heaven above. Our genders may seem fixed, but even these may change as we find beauty in between that may at first seem strange. Our bodies may not match, inside. But we can change, transform, and find your love still deep and wide. So if we break the mold, traditions put in place, let us with courage live our lives with kindness, love, and grace. Creating God, you dance, you move as one in three. Come show us by your rainbow light our shared humanity. The heavens and the earth are made new every day. Help us discover by your grace new truth, new life, new ways.
I want to echo the last words of Daniel Charles Damon's song. Help us discover by your grace new truth, new life, new ways. Both David Skinner and Terry Boyd have mastered the newer ways of technology and upload these fireside chats each week to our YouTube channel. Thank you both, because it allows this ministry to thrive. My blessing for you as we depart comes from the Celtic tradition. May God be a bright flame before you, be a guiding star above you, be a kindly shepherd behind you, today, tomorrow, and forever. Amen. Until next week, goodbye.